The demon lord tried to mock the hero, claiming that if he fails, the world will end. The hero grabbed a small rock and thought it was all he had remained. The demon lord unleashed all his power and thrown a huge boulder toward the hero, but the hero countered it by using his small pebble to destroy it. The hero was tired of small games and wanted to finish it all. The demon lord accepted, and they pointed their sword toward each other using their most powerful abilities. The two engaged in the last confrontation. After several clashes, both were exhausted to the point that the hero's hair turned white. Moved by their desires, the two slowly walked forward and stabbed each other. They collapsed, yet the hero was relieved that everything was over. Fast forwarding to the future, we see a young boy happy to join school. He notices the students greeting each other and asks if that's what friends do. He feels relieved because that's what normal people are supposed to do. But young boy is none other than Blade, the hero who defeated the Demon King. He jumps in happiness, mentioning that he will make friends and live as a normal person from now on. Blade happily walked in the hallway telling himself that it was time to make some friends. He greets every random person he walks by and notices some students talking about how he seems a transferred student. He notices it and introduces himself and finds out they're called Cassim, Clay, Jessica, and Claire. He reveals that he's there to make friends in the 4 except. Blade is happy that he now has 4 friends, but now he aims to have 100 friends. Claire tells him that he needs to befriend all students. Suddenly, the girl interrupts their conversation to ask why Blade is creating a commotion. She says that they are all students at the Rosewood Academy, an academy that creates heroes, so they should follow rules and order. The group reveals that she's Arness Flaming, the strongest student in school, and is called the Empress. Yet Blade simply introduces himself with a big smile, but earnest and care. She asks who the hell he is. Claire tries to explain that Blade just transferred in, but Arness still doesn't care, claiming that this school only admits people who want to be heroes, and they shouldn't accept late admissions. Blade drops the ball when he mentions he doesn't care about becoming a hero. He's only here to make friends. Arness goes on a tantrum because he doesn't have any resolve to protect people. Blade doesn't care and asks her to take him to the principal's office. She shows him the way and knocks the door. The principal tells them to get in, and when Arness sees the principal's face, she bows down in respect. Blade doesn't care about it and talks to the principal in a casual tone. Arness grabs his leg and calls him an idiot. She asks if he knows who the principal is, and Blade is like, "Sure I do." She then starts begging the principal to forgive the new student because he doesn't know that the principal is the king. The king laughs it off, mentioning that he heard about Arness from the previous headmaster, and reveals that he's now the new school principal. Arness starts complimenting the king like any loyal subordinate would do, but she almost never ends licking his boots quietly. The king tells her that's enough and that she should leave because he needs to speak to Blade in private. She gets out and gets mad because Blade treats the king just like a casual friend. Blade then blames the king because he just got on her bad side because of the whole situation. He asks the king what he is doing here, and the king reveals that Blade lost his powers after the fight with the demon lord, and he wants him to regain his hero powers. Blade gets annoyed because he wants to be an ordinary person, but the king ignores him, calling this school just a rehabilitation center for Blade. The king continues ignoring Blade and explains he will change the school curriculum. He wants to create great heroes just like Blade was. The young boy tries to dismiss it as unnecessary because the Demon King is dead. The king mentions the report about Blade's last battle against the Demon King, resulting on both losing their powers, yet he believes that there's a way to restore Blade's power. Blade is still pretty annoying because the king always acted like this, but he decides to ignore it. Blade returns to class where everyone is doing their own thing. He notices Arness and tries to talk to her. She asks him what is he doing in the S class. Blade explains he took the exam for F classes, but he was told to come here. She thinks he bribed someone to get into the school and the S class. She explains that this isn't a school that admits people half-hearted to get in, and claims that he cheated. Blade claims he's dead serious in this school. He wants to make 100 friends. He starts introducing himself to every person around, claiming he wants to be friends with them. Arness gets annoyed by his actions, but he suddenly pats her head. She gets shy and tries to attack him with her sword, but Blade swiftly jumps to dodge her attack. Another student named Sophie interrupts them to tell that the instructor told them to assemble. Blade introduces himself to her twice, but she only ignores him. Arness then explains what he's doing, and the girl introduces herself as Sophie. Blade starts shaking her hand, yet Arness calls the instructor. She tells that she wants to test Blade's ability. The teacher tries to stop it, With surrenders after being intimidated, she gets an enchanted metal armor and tells that every S-class student can easily slice through it. She tells that he must also do it to prove his power or he must leave the academy. She tries to explain that S-class is on a different level compared to the remaining ones, but Blade is like, how many levels are we talking about? She replies that they're at least 3 levels above the rest. Blade is slightly impressed and decides to use his second sword skill. He unleashes his fighting spirit, impressing everyone around. They notice it's the rarest and strongest Dragon Series spirit. Blade accumulates the power around his sword and unleashes the skilled Dragon Eater. This is a wind skill that not only completely crushes the enchanted armor into dust, as it also rips off Arness' clothes and knocks every student except for Sophie against the wall. Arness then comes back and asks how the hell is Blade. After looking around, Blade notices what happened and apologizes, claiming that he's an ordinary person. The class ends in its lunchtime. Arness is eating alone in her spot. Blade decides to join her and calls his friends to join them, but they all refuse to. Arness explains that table is reserved for her, but he confuses the situation. He asks if she's being bullied, but she calls him an idiot and reveals that everyone is afraid of her. He wants to know why, but she ignores him. After tasting his food, Blade starts to eat like he never had a meal in his life. She's confused because it's just curry. Yet she apologized for telling that he bribed someone to join the school, but Blade didn't even remember that situation. She admits that he has some talent, but Blade is focused on his food. On the other hand, Blade thanks her because she helped him realize as his dream of having friends. She's confused what he tells that since they're eating together, they're now friends. Arness gets as red as tomato, and tells that she doesn't mind being his friend. Later, at night, Arness gets back to her room and reflects on his words. She initially calls him an idiot, but then starts rolling on her bed, happy that she managed to make her first friend. Suddenly, her sword starts shacking, making her remember her past. When she was younger, she immediately felt an attraction toward her sword. When she approached the sword, told her to surrender herself to it, Arness fell into those words and picked up the sword. Her hair turned from black to red, and since then the sword has been filling her mind with words to destroy, slash, and burn. The sword repeats those words, but Arness tells it to shut up. She's the next head of her family, and she won't give in to the demonic sword. She manages to calm down the sword and felt determined to get stronger. The next day, they continue their practice lessons, but she's annoyed that her opponent is not taking the fight seriously. This guy is the type of playboy who doesn't want a lady to get hurt. The guy then falls back to activate the power of his lands, which Blade thinks it's amazing and rushes forward, just to get thrown away. The guy puts his playboy phase and admits defeat, but suddenly Arness loses control, is about to kill him. She manages to stop the swing in time and calls for her next opponent. Sophie steps in and the two start their battle. She manages to block Arness' attacks with her punches and even manages to push her back. Arness is forced to use a fire skill, and Sophie admits defeat. She then calls Blade to fight her, but he's worried about her condition. She tells that she's fine and gets into her posture, yet she suddenly drops her sword and faints after feeling the sword trying to consume her. Blade manages to catch her in time and takes her to the infirmary. He tries to convince the doctor to make Arness feel better, just like she did to him after defeating the Demon Lord. But she explains she cannot do something against spells and curses. Arness then wakes up, confused about what happened. Blade tries to explain, but she gets startled and tries to get up late, stops her, and explains everything. Arness wants to leave, but the doctor tells her to rest. Blade promises that he will take care of Arness and helps her get back. She says that she can walk by herself, but Blade tells her that she can lean on him because they're friends. But she simply tells him to keep what happened a secret and walks away. Blade then decides to infiltrate in the data system of the academy to get information about her. He finds out that Arness has the demon sword name Asmodeus. He decides to call her out to talk in private. She misunderstands his intentions, thinking it's something romantic, but he says that he knows the secret about her sword. Outside, he explains that her sword gives her more power. But since the sword has free will, the sword doesn't accept her as its master. He asks how it did happen, and she explains that she found the sword when she was 6 and the sword tried to take over her body. Since then, she's still trying to battle against the sword urges. Blade then tells the only way to stop it is for the sword to acknowledge her as its owner, but she's afraid to try it because if she fails, the demon will take her body and kills thousands of innocent people. Blade tells her that it's okay. She gets mad, but Blade tells her he can handle it and if it's needed he will destroy the sword. She decides to believe him and starts the ritual to form a pact. Blade watches her from the side as he sees flames surrounding her body. After finishing the chant, the demon sword increases the flames to test her. Arness sees herself in front of the demon, and she orders it to submit to her. The demon refuses to surrender, forcing them into a fight. The flames start to generate some sort of small demons, wishing to destroy everything. One of the demons tries to attack Blade, but he destroys it with his punch. After watching the scene, Arness believes the Blade will take care of everything if she fails. She decides to give it her all and decides to go all out against the demon. The two clashes with their powers, and with Blade's support she manages to win the battle and control the sword. Blade catches Arness as she falls from the sky and congratulates her for succeeding. From that moment on, Arness changed her habits. She starts to greet students with a smile instead of being moody, all thanks to her first friend Blade. That brings the episode to an end.